If I were to accept, I must know I can count on you, that you don't feel, if you were to have a relapse, it could leave me vulnerable, yes. It could leave you vulnerable. Stripped. You'd have to take care of me all over again. That's unfair. Are you criticizing me because I take care of you? And that's what you told the president, that your wife might have problems with. He doesn't know. Nobody knows. Not even your mother knows. There are people who know. I'm not talking about those kinds of people. Nobody in the new government knows. I'm talking about the fact that we never made it public, as we never denounced things only if the result was death, huh? Paulina, I'm sorry. This commission you're named to, doesn't it only investigate cases that ended in death? It's appointed to investigate human rights violations that ended in death or the presumption of death, yes. Only the most serious cases? The idea is that if we can throw light on the worst cases, other abuses will also come to light. Only the most serious? Let's say the cases are beyond repair. Beyond repair. Irreparable, huh? I don't like to talk about this, Paulina. I don't like to talk about this either. Hi, this is Marta from Ruby Soup with Pearl Juice, and today I am bringing a review of a 1991 play called The Deaf and the Maiden, penned by Ariel Dorfman. Ariel Dorfman is a Chilean author of Jewish descent. During the 1970s, he went into exile due to Pinochet seizing power. And the reason why I thought about reviewing this book today is because tomorrow is going to be the 12th of September as I film this. And that will mark the anniversary of when Pinochet, with the help of the CIA, overthrew the democratically elected government that existed in Chile back then. And Pinochet came into power and he tortured and killed millions of political prisoners. And this book that is penned by one of the refugees of that time doesn't explicitly state what country this is based in, but it is heavily based on real cases that took place and the aftermath that happened when Chile then returned to democracy in 1990. And this book follows three characters. Paulina, who is a torture survivor, and her husband, who is working in the new government where in this unnamed country they are trying to rebuild the society after the dictatorship has fallen. Then the third character is a man whose car breaks down and he comes to ask them for some help and he decides to stay the night after they offer him a place. But Paulina thinks that she has met this man before, and she is convinced that she recognizes his voice, and she believes that this is the man who tortured her years ago, and she basically wants to do vigilante justice. And her husband, Gerardo, is thinking that this is all in her head. And the whole play is basically this tension of what is going to happen, and is Paulina right, or is Gerardo right, and what should they do if Paulina is right, as well as we then learn more about Paulina's backstory as the play progresses. This is a very short play. It is 68 pages long, but it's really good. You can read this in one setting. I'm going to have to give some trigger warnings for this. Obviously, there's trigger warnings for torture, but also, this might be a bit of a spoiler, but there's also trigger warnings for rape in this play. And at the end of this version, if you buy this edition, Ariel Dorfman even talks a little bit about the whole history about what happened in Chile with Pinochet and his own personal experiences with it. He got this idea for this play while he was still in exile, and he was writing it And then he did the last finishing drafts when he heard about that Chile had returned to democracy. And he was thinking about this question about how do you go on from there and what do you do with the people that have committed these horrible crimes. And what would be the thing that would give the proper closure to victims and what form of justice should that then take form in. This play is a thriller that asks a lot of really difficult questions. And it also talks about a situation that you don't see much in literature, which is the aftermath of a dictatorship. I feel like there's a lot of literature that describes oppression and dictatorships and such, but very few literature actually talks about the aftermath of these things and how do you rebuild your life after those things have taken place. Ariel Dorfman leaves it up to the viewer to decide who is right, like was it Paulina or Gerardo, and what should they have done in that situation. And his colleagues, are you going to kidnap them and bring them here and tie them up? And I'd have to know their names for that, wouldn't I? And then you're going to kill them? Kill him? As he didn't kill me, I think it wouldn't be fair to. It's good to know that, Paulina, because you would have to kill me too. I'm warning you that if you intend to kill him, you're going to have to kill me first. Would you mind calming down? I haven't the slightest intention of killing him, and certainly not you. But as usual, you don't believe me. But then, what are you going to do to him? With him? You're going to what? What are you going to? And all this because 15 years ago someone what? What did they do to me, Gerardo? Say it. You never wanted to say it. Say it now. If you didn't say it, how was I going to? Say it now. I only know what you told me that first night when tell me. They tortured you. Now you say it. They tortured me. And what else? What else did they do to me, Gerardo? As with any play, the main thing is the dialogue. And the fact that this only has 3 characters works really well. All the characters in this play bounce off each other perfectly, and there's just the right amount of dealing with painful issues while also having this tension of trying to figure out what's going to happen next and what actually is occurring in this situation, as well as seeing a person who is trying to get closure for the things that have happened to her. And I think this play is interesting in that while it focuses on something that happened to a lot of people of all genders, this has a very specific look on violence towards women that happen in these kinds of situations. And I think it's very interesting and also very important how it deals with sexual assault when it's done in this organized mechanic that oppressive governments use. That's a point of view that's not often seen in this kind of fiction, and despite that it's written by a man, I think it's really well done, and it's very empathetic. Paulina, despite that she does things that in real life might be seen as insane, then this play makes her very sympathetic, and it really makes you root for her because you do want to see her get justice for these things that have happened to her. And there's also a very interesting thing about her husband being a bit critiqued here because he hasn't really dealt with this and he hasn't really been as empathetic as he should have been. And that's a very interesting dynamic that's brought in there. Limited. Let's say we're limited. But there is so much we can do. We'll publish our conclusions. There will be an official report. What happened will be established objectively, so no one will ever be able to deny it, so that our country will never again live through the excesses that... And then Gerardo is silent. You hear the relatives of the victims. You denounce the crimes. What happens to the criminals? That depends on the judges. The courts receive a copy of the evidence, and the judges proceed from there to the judges. The same judges who never intervened to save one life in 17 years of dictatorship, who never accepted a single habeas corpus ever. Judge Peralta, who told that poor woman who had come to ask for her missing husband that the man had probably grown tired of her and run off with some other woman. That judge? What did you call him? A judge? A judge? As she speaks, Paulina begins to laugh softly, but with an increase in hysteria. Paulina, that's enough. Paulina. As I said before, as I'm filming this, tomorrow is going to be the anniversary of the coup that happened in Chile in the 70s. And while this doesn't explicitly deal with Chile, it is an unnamed country, which does give it a nice universal feel. I think that this is a part of history that is really good to talk about and to be remembered. And I also think that this is just a really good book to spread awareness of violence towards women, as well as torture, as well as, since this week is the anniversary, do pick this up and read this. It gives a very important insight to this part of history. Well, that was my review of Death and the Maiden by Ariel Dorfman. Have you guys read this play? I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, if you know any other works of fiction that deal with the 1970s up to the 1990s part of history in Chile, do leave some comments down below. I would love to check some more media out on that issue. If you like this video, click the like button, subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye!